Hey, David, it's the time for the draft. It's getting close to the draft. It's True Hoops. Bring it in. Our little Zoom from quarantine Zoom show. Interestingly, this week the show we were recording from 11 to noon. Noon we now know is the time that NBA trades can be done again for the first time in almost a year. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy day. David, how are you?
I'm doing great, and we probably will talk about the Lakers OKC proposed trade.
Yeah.
Just because it's we're talking about one of the best teams in the league next year, who are the defending champs, getting a hell of a player, and not really giving up, in my opinion, as much as what they might have thought they were giving up a year ago when they first got Danny Green. So, yeah.
So let's do it. If we're gonna do it, let's do it. So the idea is that they will get Dennis Schroeder and I think a pick.
I didn't look to see because I don't need to know ahead of time. The games don't start till late December. I'm happy to wait for the actual real trade to be announced, and I'll find out what they're getting. But yeah, the main particulars are Danny Green and Dennis Schroeder are swapped.
And this year's Lakers first round pick after it's been picked because they can't trade the pick before because they can't trade. But you like it for the Lakers.
I do because if you think about how well Rondo played for them in meaningful parts of the most important series of all, the finals, and we don't know if Rondo's coming back there. This actually doesn't help Rondo's case unless he doesn't mind being an off the bench guy, which is fine. Although that probably is where Schroeder should be, is coming off the bench. He's really a dynamic player and needs a LeBron James, Anthony Davis factor because he can be wild. Like, he's a weird dude, people say.
Yeah.
And but nobody can guard him on the court. I almost don't know that he totally recognizes how unguardable he is. He also shot better than 40% from three this year. He's exactly what LA needs as LeBron continues to age away from when he's at his most spectacular. This guy is a playmaker and a scorer and brings energy. What the Lakers need, energy and athletes, right?
Yeah, he's not 100 years old. That's a big deal.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's the young, energetic guy that's really skilled. I mean, the Clippers are loaded still. We'll see what they end up happening with free agency, whatever. But to add one of the best six men in the league, I don't remember who won the award this year, but he's among the few top guys. And to add that to the Lakers it just makes them better for sure.
Okay, so the theme of today's show is love. Sometimes we can be a little persnickety on this show. I don't know where that comes from, but today we're not doing that. Today you've been watching, you've been texting and calling me every few hours with another thing you've seen. You've been watching a video like crazy, using your network of contacts, and just getting ready for the draft. We have reached a point now where there are 5 players who you just absolutely adore, and maybe a little bonus. But let's get into this. Let's start with number 1. Like, who's your favorite player? Who gets the big Thorpe heart on them in this draft?
If we do it based on where I think they should be drafted, I have a different answer than just who do I love the most in the draft as a man. Which you want me to do?
I think we should go in the order. Like, you're a GM.
Okay.
You're the first pick. Who you take?
I figured you'd say that.
Yeah.
So we published an article a couple weeks ago saying it's a 1-player draft. Nothing that I've seen changes that. That does not mean at all that no one else can be an all-star. Of course, other guys can develop all-stars. No one thought Chris Middleton would be an all-star. The list is long of guys that became all-stars that weren't even lottery picks. But to me, if you're talking about who should go number 1, I think it's a one name list, and that's James Weissman. I just feel like, and I watched him again today. A lot of the best big men in this draft are 6'9", outrageously long, athletic. Some of them can make threes, some can't. They all jump way above the rim. This guy's listed at 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan. One high-level college coach told me he speaks fluent Mandarin, which blew my mind. I've not confirmed that, but this guy recruited him. I know from his coaches at Memphis, he's a very bright, willing student learner. I told you, Henry, I don't see a red flag. I don't agree when people have written that he isn't mobile in terms of lateral movement. He's definitely super fast and super jumpy. I think he moves his feet very well. He's a kid who's just learning how to play. He's a puppy dog. A lot of these guys are puppies. They can't wait to jump around like puppies, but the veteran, the Anthony Davis of the world, just calm down. I'm going to go jump when you jump. Like they got it. But Anthony Davis used to be a big puppy dog too. He can shoot it. And I think he's got a chance to be a 3-point threat. He's got some skill. And now, and I told you this, I read that he's training with Dwayne Wade's trainer in Miami, and he's got pipes in his arms, right? He looks like David Robinson, when he was 28, and this kid's 19, 20. And then I spoke to an agent this weekend who was down in that same gym seeing a different player, not Weissman, but Weissman was there, and he said, Coach, he looks amazing. He's taken advantage of the pandemic to change his body. That's a good sign. If he goes to the Warriors or Minnesota, whatever, he's not ready to win a championship for you as your best player. He's a barely, if he's not a teenager still, he just was a teenager. But I think his upside is enormous, and I don't see a downside. And I do for a lot of the other guys.
Yeah, he's 19. And so to the extent that there's been a lot of talk about other players who might be going higher or go to the Warriors, even if he falls to them, you think that's 100% or 90% misdirection / hot air?
Yeah. So in Golden State's, if you look at Golden State, if you said to me, Henry, they're going to end up trading that pick and they're going to upgrade their center position with a young, talented player who might be more limited long-term than James Weissman, but it's what Curry and Thompson want. I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. I think it's a little crazy. This is a franchise level talent. There's a reason why he was number one in his class for a long time. His high school team was amazing. Again, he checks the boxes of intangibles, work ethic. Well, you can actually measure. They really shouldn't be called intangibles. Off the court things. Is he going to show up early every day? Yes, according to his Memphis coaches. Does he have great hands? Yes. Like DeAndre Jordan didn't. It's probably why he went second round, among other reasons, which is pretty crazy to think about it, that he went second round. But he didn't catch really well. A lot of guys don't catch well. He does, which is important for a pick and roll player at that size and length, whatever. Rudy Gobert didn't have good hands at first. He already has great hands. They're just going to get better. So I think if you're Golden State, you're thinking this guy becomes a nice piece for us, and maybe by June he can be our best defensive center, which is what the goal would be. And then as in the next year, I'm not losing my core. This guy starts the process. I mean, Bam Adebayo made an all-star team in year 3. So why can't this guy do it? I think he can. And unlike some other places, and we're going to make this point a couple of times in this discussion today, he's not going to be asked to do too much, exactly like Kawhi, which I wrote about, if I remember. That's the best way to develop these guys. Give them a small piece of the pie to master and let them master that. If you try to do too much too soon, it's like eating too much right away. You feel sick and you don't really master anything, right? So let him carve out a little goal for him, and let's get pick and roll, certainly pick and roll coverage defensively, the overall defensive schemes. Keep it simple. He doesn't need you to help him dunk the ball. He's got that, right? He doesn't need to help him race. He already does love to race rim to rim. So he's already doing those things. So keep him disciplined by shortening that menu and let it just grow. And by year 3, just like the Heat did with Bam and just like the Spurs did with Kawhi, you got yourself potentially an all-star as those guys age out of being all-stars, and now that it's very good players. Although Kyle Lowry is still one of the best players in the league, Steph Curry could do the same thing in a couple of years. So now you're still competing for championships, but Weissman might be your best player.
Okay, so we got a little love. We love James Weissman. All right, who's next?
Oh, I like Denny Avdia from Maccabi Tel Aviv from Israel. I think if Weissman went to Minnesota number 1, which I think he should, or if they traded and he went number 1. This is the EuroLeague dunk of the year. That's Amari Stoudemire with the ball. And then he misses a shot. Quincy Acey, another former NBA player, not as good as Amari. And this is the EuroLeague. That's how the EuroLeague is. The ball comes to him, and he comes with this monster dunk. It's the EuroLeague Magic Play of the Year over a very famous Italian player named Ditome, Gigi Ditome, a longtime National League player for them, national team player. Avdia is, as I wrote to you in our little document, he is Jason Tatum, like Paul George. I'm not saying he's as good as them. that's what he can be. He's got to learn to shoot. But so did Paul George. Jason Tatum couldn't dribble it. He could shoot it. This kid can dribble it, can't shoot it. Not really great. But Avdia, when he was 17, he made the under 20 all-European, the European Championships all tournament team. And Israel won that championship for the first time, I think, in their history. So he's the best under 20s in Europe, right? I think they beat Croatia in the finals. He was not the MVP, but he was 17. And he made the all-tournament team, and Israel won. He came back the next year at 18, and this is ironic considering he was 17 the year before. The next year he came back with Israel's team, and he was the second youngest player in the tournament. It just, for whatever reason, more teams sent older guys. Probably they got pissed off because the Jews in Israel won the championship. So they sent their 20-year-olds too. And this time he was the MVP, and Israel won again. They beat France and Spain, and he had 26 and 23. I think he had 26 and 11 in the semis against France. And they were down 11-0, and he just got a bucket, and like he was making jumpers, and he's not a great shooter, which is why he's not going number one. Otherwise, I think he might, because he's got a LaMelo Ball in his game as a passer. He's a playmaker. And then just to remind everyone, LaMelo played in the Australian League. They called the NBL. And some dude, I don't know who it was, and I think he's right. He said the NBL on the whole is better than the ACC, the college league with Duke and Carolina. And he's probably right. The NBL is a good league. Okay. These are men. But the NBL compared to the EuroLeague, there is no comparison, right? It's JV to varsity. And Denny got major playing time for Maccabi Tel Aviv this year. And then, as I told you on the phone earlier, in the Israeli league, which is not as good as the Australian league, but it's not far away. It's a very good league and a bunch of players you'd recognize right away, including Amari and plenty of other NBA guys who have matriculated to your Israel at some point. They pay Americans very well, and it's an amazing style of living. So a lot of guys like to play there. The Israelis are just okay on and off. It depends on the team. But he played a ton in the Israeli league because you don't play your Americans as much. And I think he was the MVP of that league. I don't agree with it. So I'm not really using that as an adjective to explain why he should be drafted so high, because I don't think it was fair that he got it, but he was fucking really good. Playmaker, playing defense, races the court, knows how to be the man. And this is, again, you'll hear this theme through a couple of our guys on this list. When they were in the EuroLeague, mostly Henry, you saw Denny just be a catch and shoot role playing 3-and-D guy. In the Israeli league, he had to be the man, one of many. Scotty Wilbekin's a great player on their team. Probably should have been the MVP of the league, I think. So he did both. And then I did my research. Do you know how many Israelis I know? Including some teammates of guys that have played with him on the national team and then in Maccabi. Just 10 out of 10 as a friend. 10 out of 10 as a pro. His dad is played on the Serbian national team. He actually could play for the Serbian national team. And maybe one day will, but he was raised in Israel because his dad played for Maccabi and they never left. So people always say he's got a lot of the Israeli part to him, but he's got some of the Serb blood. Dad was a pro, knows how to train. Those guys train 8 hours a day. They're crazy. So he's got all of that. And if he doesn't learn to be a good shooter, and he's just okay now, I think it looks okay. It looks like he has a chance to be a good shooter for sure. But if he isn't, he's going to be a long-time rotation player and probably a starter. He's very, very good, Henry. If he ends up being a shooter, I don't know that he has Jason Tatum's upside and Brandon Ingram's upside, but he's not far from that. He's going to be a high-level scorer playmaker in the NBA, and he's doing it against pros already, so he's got a leg up on the competition that way.
And this, I don't think you have to win a ton before the NBA to be good in the NBA, but if you did win a ton before you make it, that wraps up on a bow a lot of the difficult to answer questions about your preparation and professionalism and how you recognize what's happening on the court, et cetera, right? This is why you took us on this tour of all these things he's won, right? Is because it projects really well, right? You
know me well. That's exactly. I mean, it's not, we shouldn't punish a player for being the only good player on his terrible team. I mean, unless you're LeBron, you just can't win wherever you go. But if you do, it's a sign.
Yeah.
And when you're the best player on that team, or in some cases the second best player, it tells us they know how to play with the best player. That's meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
The point guard that knows how to get people the ball and doesn't mind not, Russell Westbrook has struggled with that. Let's face it, right? He hasn't won a championship with Harden and KD, and I'm not blaming Russell. I'm just saying they might have been better off with a guy that wanted to shoot less and pass more on that particular team back in the day. So I think it means something when you're Denny Avdia and Maccabi may have won the early title this year had they actually finished the season. They did in the Euro Cup. They didn't in the EuroLeague. They may have won. He's very, very. I don't even remember if they did it. If they did a final in the EuroLeague, it was. I'm not sure. I really don't think they did. But if they did, it wasn't the real thing. They were one of the best 4 teams, and he was an important player. He played a lot of minutes this year.
We should save this tape. I want to look at these assessments like 5 years from now, because I think they're going to be valuable. I've known you for a long time, so I know that like you say these things about like, oh, I think that Marcus Smart's pretty good or whatever. And later everyone's like, oh, Marcus Smart's really good. Okay. So for the record, Weissman, I used God bless Sam Viceni of the Athletic. This is a gazillion page draft guide. See this? I printed it out. It's like it's like 100 prospects deep. For the record, I'm using his big board just for comparison. It's similar to all of them, but James Weissman is number 2. You're ranking James Weissman number 1. Denny Avdia is number 6 on this big board. You're ranking him 2nd. I think it's cool. This is where the value is, right? Like you're seeing it a little differently. You've been doing this a long time. All right, who do you have next?
It's hard. I know why people love Obi Toppin, and I want to get to him, but I'm so in love with Devin Vassell from Florida State. And I have a story. I have 2 stories to tell. Only one is about him, but you'll like him, I think. I'm sure I've told you one before. When I heard Troy Aikman talking with the football player from the Cowboys, quarterback, he was talking about why he was so successful for Dallas. And he broke down crying, talking about a receiver he had named Michael Irvin. And that was meaningful to me because I had a college pledge brother of mine who played growing up football with Michael Irvin. We're like a year apart in age. And I remember when he was at Miami, we were at Florida, and we couldn't root against the Hurricanes. Like I love the Hurricanes because one of my buddies played ball with Michael Irvin growing up. And Michael Irvin was known as the playmaker, and he was very brash and whatever, and cocaine and strippers. His story has been kind of illustrious. Should make a movie out of it. But Aikman was saying, as he was choking up crying, people don't understand. We never had a bad practice because of Michael Irvin. There's a reason why we won 3 Super Bowls. And the year they got there, they were 1-15. Jimmy Johnson, Emmitt Smith, their offensive line, all of that. But he said, Irvin, when we were struggling, he picked us up. He brought energy and spirit. When we were cocky, he nailed us and took us down. And we just always had good practices. It wasn't me. It wasn't Emmitt. It was Irvin. And when he cried, that hit me like, okay, like this is real. He didn't cry about Emmitt Smith, the best running back ever, whatever. And so now let's fast forward to Devin. When we took our visit to Florida State, I'm telling you, I couldn't name a single player on Florida State's team. I didn't know their names. I knew a guy named Trent Forrest. It turns out who I thought it wasn't even him. And he was their senior captain. He's probably maybe a 2nd round pick. And so I knew this guy, Devin, was supposed to be a good player for them. And I didn't recognize anyone. I didn't watch a single game for them all year. I knew their coaches and I knew the style they played. And I'm watching practice. And there's this long, skinny, light-skinned dude who just kept smiling before practice. And I had no idea who he was. And I didn't even know his name. I thought it was Devin Hussale. I'm embarrassed as I was talking to the coach later. I like that Vassell kid. It's Vassell, or Vassell. I didn't even know his name right. So I'm watching practice, and they yell at him. They're yelling at this kid all the time. And he just kept putting his arms around the coaches who were yelling at him. They were coaching him. They weren't screaming at him. And just had the biggest smile on his face, and he looked him in the eye, and it never stopped the whole practice. He just had a like he wasn't the most energetic guy he was on Michael Irvin. But I learned as I'm watching practice, because I was talking to the head coach a lot, like that's their lottery pick. And this is how it reacts to being yelled at the day before their biggest game of the year to win the ACC. Oh, I like that. Like there's no ego. And then he only averaged 14 points a game. So now I've done my research, right? I didn't do it then. He's a likely top 10 pick, maybe top 6, top 7, who knows. I told you this today. He's number 1 career all time in the ACC in box plus minus for a season. What? What in the world is that for a 2-guard? To be number 1 all time in box plus minus for a season? That's incredible to me. And he is Reggie Miller with a smile on his face. And here's what I mean by that. So Reggie, if you remember, Reggie's shot was really weird looking, right? I told you earlier, there was tape on Devin shooting like Jamal Wilkes. Now, Jamal Wilkes shot the ball from behind his head. It kind of went around sideways. I think he's in the Hall of Fame, so it would be great if he ended up shooting like Jamal Wilkes. But I guess you don't want people to shoot like Jamal Wilkes when you haven't done it before. Turns out he was messing around. But I'm telling you, I bet he wasn't messing around by a lot because he does bring it a little far behind his head. And that's what Reggie did. And that's beautiful because it's harder to contest.
Right.
And so
it's beautiful if it goes in. You don't teach it that way because it doesn't go in, but if it goes in.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he's over 40% both years from 3. There's more reasons to love him. He really guards. People think he's the best perimeter defender in the draft. I don't think they did wingspans because there was no combine, but he's rumored to have a 7-foot wingspan. I did shake his hand. I stood next to him. He's very long.
It's for the record 6'9" in this draft guide, but I don't know if that's right.
As a wingspan? Yeah, that might have been when he was 17, whatever. He was a 3-star recruit. Another thing I love about him. He wasn't a high-level recruit and just has earned what he's earned because of this is where I think data scientists have really helped our game. He only averaged 14 a game because they play 12 guys a game and so many different guys score. And they have another lottery pick who is going to be our bonus player. He only averaged 9 points a game. So combined, they have 2 lottery picks that are averaging 23 points a game. But that's how they play. So he earned that with work ethic, whatever. He really guards. And then he also, I watched a lot of their tape. Florida State was the best team in the ACC. They won the ACC, and he had a lot of big shots like Reggie Miller might. This is a 3-star guy taking the biggest shots in some of their biggest games against high-level competition on the road at Notre Dame and at NC State. They're just in your eye, threes off the dribble, but he doesn't force it, which is why his metrics are off the charts. So, okay, really shoots a 3, has an amazing work ethic, doesn't mind only averaging 14 a game. He didn't think he was ever going to be an NBA player after 2 years. Impossible that happened. Really guards people, multiple steals a game and block shots a game. Who doesn't need that guy? And I read someone's report. It wasn't Sam, but someone's report had a very interesting take on all the players of their best fit and where they aren't a good fit. And he was the only guy for this author to write. I just forget who it was. He said, he wrote, there's no one that he's a bad fit for. No one doesn't need him. He said, I'm not being funny. It's just reality. There's no place that this guy can't play his game. I like that. I like being coach-proof and roster-proof and system-proof, right? Dude can just guard and shoot and plays the right way, and his metrics are through the roof, as is the winning. I think he had the best 2-year run in Florida State history. That plays anywhere. That makes me, if I'm a GM, that makes me feel very good.
And did an interview with an NBA player a few years ago, and he was basically like, I decided to focus on defense in college because in the NBA, it's how you get minutes. Once you get minutes, you can become a player, right? Like, so what, on top of everything you just said, where Devin Vassell can fit everywhere, is he'll play, right? Like, if you can hit open threes, stretch the floor, and play voracious defense all game, like, he'll be in the game.
And people are nitpicking him a little bit on his playmaking. I don't disagree with them, but he doesn't have to be a great passer. He's a willing passer. He's a ball mover. But because he's got that weird looking jumper in a good way, he can get it off. You can guard him well. He can get to 16 feet and just rise up and make a jumper. There's value to that. There's value. I mean, the end of possessions, like, this guy might be a 20 per game scorer. He's not just a shooter, right? Think of Bojan Bogdanovic from Utah, averaged 20, I think 2 years in a row. He's a little bit taller than Devin. Maybe the wingspan's about the same, but there's value in being a 20-point scorer that can also really shoot the 3, and you're not just a 3-point shooter, but Devin's going to be a plus defender, whereas I think Bogdanovic is okay in defense. He's not great. Yeah, that dude, Charlotte's drafting 3. I don't take Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball over this guy. I know that they will because they're hoping for the Grand Slam. I think it's a mistake. I'm gonna take the guy that's the sure thing. And if we're in the playoffs in 2 or 3 years, he's my starting wing. I'll take it.
Yeah, we talked about this. Like, I feel this feels like maybe 8th grade math, 9th grade math. I'm not sure what year we did this, but where it's like, okay, so LaMelo Ball,
Yeah,
it has like 20% likely to be a 10, right? Which makes him, his likely
ceiling's
performance
high.
is averages around a 2, right? Whereas let's make it up. You make a different number, but maybe Devin Vassell is 100% likely to be a 6, which makes him in a way 3 times more likely to succeed than LaMelo Ball.
Right. I like the guy that I'm looking at for all of these players is Chris Middleton, and I don't mean they all play like him. I don't suggest that at all. He made himself into an all-star. How?
Mm-hmm.
He guards. He became a shot maker. He became a winner, meaning he's making lots of good basketball plays, and he's got the requisite size. All right. So for your position, you have to have, if you can be a shot maker, if you can play good defense, if you can make good high IQ, good basketball plays, have your toughness, be totally pro, you could be like Middleton for your position. And I mean, it's hard to make an all-star team, but you know what? It's not as hard as people think. There's only a few can't miss studs, but they got to fill out 24 roster spots for the all-star team. They're not all picks 1 and 2 in the draft. And so Devin's one of these guys that if he's averaging 20 a game and making 43% of his threes, and he's second team all league defense at a 25-year-old, he's only I think he's 20 now. Mm-hmm. He played 2 years. I think he's 18, 19. He probably just turned 20. How are you upset that you didn't take a guy like that? I mean, you took a guy like that. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Wait, would you really take him 3rd overall though? Like no matter what? You would.
Yes.
Right?
Well, I mean, again, I've heard. I made some phone calls this weekend about Anthony Edwards, who I did not like in March or April when I wrote a piece on him. I just think there's such a huge floor. I don't like drafting high ceiling, high floor guys unless I know I can build that floor much higher because of my culture. So if I know I can raise that floor up, I'd be more willing to look into it. But every team doesn't have that ability. Right. Spurs can take anyone, probably be fine. OKC, right. But I think again, if you can draft a high level 3-and-D wing that helps your team win games, those guys you just can't find them everywhere. They're hard to find.
Okay, so players Thorpe loves. Number 1, James Weissman. Number 2, Denny Avdia. Number 3, Devin Vassell. Who's number 4?
So of my list, I would draft Obi Toppin above the other guys I'll mention.
Okay.
Obi reminds me, I said the other day on our show on Friday with Gerard, I mentioned Montrezl Harrell. That I did a bad job explaining it. He's just got Montrezl's confidence. Like he really is sure that he's just going to crush you. And I like that about him. But he reminds me of watching Kenyon Martin play. He is, I think he only played 2 years of college, freshman, sophomore year, but he's 22, which tells me graduated high school or post-grad at 20, prep school, whatever he did. It helps that Dayton was one of the best teams in the country this year. It's a big advantage to be 22 against 18, 19, 20-year-olds for sure. But in terms of highlights, Henry, he's the most athletic player in the draft. He had a couple of dunks. So like, whoo. Well, where did that come from? Right? Like I didn't see it. Kenyon did that too. He's super athletic, shoots the 3. He is a nice combination of pick and roll to the rim, but also pick and pop 3. That's nice to have. There's questions about his fluidity and agility defensively. I think they're fair questions. The people who have made those questions, I agree with. He's upright as a defensive player. You can coach that up. Another concern I have is he played for I happen to think he's a very good coach, Anthony Grant. I coached against Anthony Grant when we were 23 years old back in Florida. He was a high school coach. And Anthony Grant played at Dayton. He's a quiet guy, but he gets his guys like Lionel Hollins did, Doc Rivers. He gets them to fight, and Dayton fought all year. And we talked about this with who do we have on our show Wednesday? Ben.
Ben Alamar. Yeah.
Yeah. the motivational factor matters. And so if Obi, I don't know how he's going to be if he goes to a guy that isn't a good motivator, because Anthony is. He holds guys accountable. He's a very stern guy. But I think Obi can probably be passable defensively. I don't love him ever to be a high-level defensive player, but if he can be Kenya Martin, that works, right?
No, yeah, that works. Yeah, that works.
I think so. So it's unfair, Henry, to rip LaMelo the way I have about not being competitive when other guys who I like very much sometimes aren't either. But the way I explain it is, when I saw Amar'e Stoudemire in high school being lazy, Obi Toppin sometimes was lazy this last season. They're just so much better than everyone. That's not the case with LaMelo in Australia at all. So I give Obi a pass. He destroyed college basketball. I mean, Dayton should not be a top 4 team, okay? And they were. Florida State was loaded with athletes and 3 7-footers like they always have. And so Devin Vassell could work it through that pretty good. Obi Toppin took Dayton to top 5 in the country status. So I don't care they took some plays off as he crushed everyone. David West did that too, and he was just fine in the NBA, in the same league. So yeah, and I know you like him because you first told me about him. I mean, I knew about him.
I discovered him. Yeah.
Yeah, you discovered him, right? What was your thoughts on him?
My family jokes like before Adele was super, super, super famous, but still, obviously, by the time she's on the radio, she's famous. Like I didn't know she was. No one did. I mean, she wasn't a big name, but like I'm like, oh, I think she's gonna be really big. And so the joke is like, oh, this is the guy who discovered Adele. But yeah, so I discovered Obi Toppin the same way.
Right. But what were your thoughts on Obi when you saw him?
I thought he's a little stiff in the upper spine, especially the thoracic area, where which reminded me of Sean Marion. He's a different player than Sean Marion, but like Sean Marion had like he dunked on people and he played good D, but he never quite was he wasn't no ballet dancer, But that was my first thought. But mostly here's a big dude who plays really hard and dunks really hard at people that and can shoot threes. Like that seldom. When does that ever fail in the NBA? Like that's just a dude who's going to play in the NBA, right? Like.
Yeah, when I watched him before I realized he could jump so well, he reminded me of Al Horford. Al Horford is an enigma because he's not a fluid athlete at all. And yet for many years, he was one of the anchors. When you thought about who was anchoring the top defenses, his name was always on that list. And it's a credit to Al Horford. I think his IQ is incredibly sharp. Basketball IQ, but also I think he's just super smart. I think he processes like he's like a 7-foot Kyle Lowry, a 6'10" Kyle Lowry. He's just always a step ahead of everyone. He's never out of position. Obi moves the way Al did, just better at it in terms of athletic ability. We'll see if he can do the other stuff, but he's a good guy to miss on. And offensively he's amazing. So
I'll tell you the other thing I thought was I is local for me here when Kenyon Martin's catching the pass from Jason Kidd. Like that happened not very far from here. Like burns deep into your brain, right? Yeah. Like that was a very bad team that then went to the finals and it was just Kenyon Martin dunking on people. And part of me is aware of like how this Obi Toppin character can work out, right? You're like, oh, yeah.
I don't remember Kenyon as much. I don't remember how, I always thought he was a very, very quick, tall athlete. I don't remember what he was like defensively. He should have been a great defensive player in my mind. I don't remember. Obi, I don't know that he's as quick defensively as he is offensively. Great hands, but you, like you said, that ability to shoot the ball, to be able to jump to 12 feet, run super fast from the rim, and then shoot the three. That's a nice combination.
Oh, a lot of guys oh, geez, queuing up some good stuff here.
Kenya Martin lob. Oh yeah.
I mean, this is just.
We're seeing Kenya Martin getting lob dunks from Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
Obi Toppin's got this all day. Race and jump. That's Vince Carter.
He's also Kenya's really good at this part of the game right here.
Yeah. Wow. I thought that was Vince Carter dunking. It was Kenya Martin when his bald phase. Yeah. He's Obi is going to be, and I think they're of similar size. Obi's probably listed 6'9". Kenya's, I think I remembered 6'10". And they probably lied back then.
Yeah.
So I like. I don't think he's going to be a good player. I don't know how good. There's a lot of things that have to happen. It's a hard league, but if you're going to miss, you're missing with it. We know people want to get rim runners that can jump to 12 feet. He's got that, and he's got the work ethic and all that too, I think.
All right, so recapping: James Weissman number 1, Denny Avdia number 2, Devin Vassell of Florida State number 3, Obi Toppin number 4, and we promised 5. We're actually going to deliver 6. Who's next?
So I actually the sixth guy added. I would take him over the other guy that
Okay.
I'll mention. So the reason why I first didn't watch tape on Florida State's Patrick Williams is I just seemed like such a homer, and I went to Florida, their arch rival. But the truth is, there's a reason why he's like that. Of all the players who moved the most, how do you move from March until November when no one's played any games and no one's done any real private workouts against people? You do it because it just shows up on tape, right? Patrick Williams averaged 9 points a game at Florida State. He was the ACC sixth man of the year. He was ranked right with LaMelo Ball coming out of high school. We know what LaMelo did. We know that he went to Australia for 12 games.
I'm still listening to you. Hold on, my dog has needs. 1 second.
Oh, played it all up and everything, and we all know that the whole hype story of LaMelo. Patrick Williams went to Florida State, never started a single game. I went to a game. I went to practice. I had no idea who he was. There was no one walking around like they were the prima donna. And I would tell you this. I made a point of this. So after practice, when I peppered the coaches with who these guys are and learned everything, we sat behind their bench at the game, and I didn't need to watch the game. They blew Boston College out. I was looking at how do they manage a culture with all this talent when no one is getting a bunch of minutes and points more than anything. And I saw Pat Williams, he might have scored 10 points that game. He had so much genuine joy all game long. Now, they won the ACC, so it should be easy to feel joy. But that wouldn't be the first team to have a player that wasn't so happy to win the championship when he wasn't starring, right? We see that.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Right. I was looking at, I had no idea he was a definite lottery pick. He was an 18-year-old freshman. The coaches had told me NBA people love him. They didn't even talk about Devin as much as they talked about Pat Williams. And we think he's probably done after this year. He was that highly rated already. And then I had agents calling me. What'd you think? What'd you think? What'd you think? I'm like, whoa, boy, he really is going to go lottery, isn't he? Because all these agents are telling me we think he's going lottery. And all I could tell him is, man, I just love his ability to be a great teammate. Like, what? I said, I'm just telling you, he scored 10 points against a terrible team. But I just felt like he was like one of the leaders of love. How do you being a leader of love when you're the 21st ranked player in your class? You played in the Jordan Brand Classic. Clearly, some of those other players went to place where they could, sell out and go pro, which is fine. I don't mean sell in a bad way. Play a lot, get a lot of points. He went to Florida State, came off the bench all year, and embraced that role. So now I'm an NBA GM. Now I realize if you're drafting him top 7 or 8, which he might, this is not necessarily the case. But if I was a team, if I was Golden State, and I wouldn't take him at 2, as I would take Weissman or Denny, but I wouldn't be afraid. He knows how to be a role player too, right? And you can see a theme with me. I like guys that love playing and love competing and love finding their role and then having the ambition to build on it. I just am attracted to players like that. And he's got that.
I'm sold, but we should probably talk a little about his basketball abilities.
Right, I was just going to do that. Right. So, all right. So that's the easy thing. 6'8", 6'11" wingspan, shoots threes, handles the ball, plays 4 positions. What else is there to say? Right.
How's his D?
I did not think his D was great. They really value defense. And I think his upside, he was 18 years old. Like, there's no 18-year-olds in the world that play good defense. He's on that list of 18-year-olds that don't play good defense yet. I think he understands it. I think because Florida State really teaches it well, he should be a very good defensive player. Mm-hmm. I don't really know, I'm going to say this and you're going to laugh. But I as you know, on my list, I gave you I told you everyone can play like. My one for Pat Williams is a way more talented PJ Tucker. It's weird to say that. He's got much more game than PJ does offensively, but he can be a defensive stud. He is built the way Karl Malone, right? He's an 18-year-old Karl Malone looking guy, right? that shoots threes, puts the ball on the ground, knows how to punish you. Like when teams switched off little guys on him, oh, he buried their ass in the post. He drew the foul. And that's my point of, but this guy got it. Like he could have done that a lot. He didn't overplay his hand because it would have come at the expense of how the team was doing. I love guys like that. So can he be like a Jaylen Brown type? Yeah. I don't know if I think Jalen's really quick. I don't know that he's got that much game in him, and he's a little taller than Jalen. But if he's a PJ Tucker that shoots threes, not just corner threes, can be more of a playmaker. At 18, I wouldn't bet against him, and can be a defensive stud, which I think he can be. Yeah, he's not the number one pick in the draft, but he's top 10, which would look. I mean, teams. I've been reading teams that are like trying to trade up. He's one of the guys they would get. Yeah, because he's the youngest or second youngest player in the draft.
Okay. Lots of love. That's number 5. He's for the record, I didn't tell you, Devin Vassell, number 11 on Sam Sunny's big board, and Patrick Williams is number 9. So if you draft them higher than that, teams, you're getting tremendous value from David Thorpe. Okay, last one. Our bonus player, who's that?
So I never heard of Aaron Nesmith. I promise you, for anyone paying attention, I'm bringing it in for True Hoop, I won't be as stupid next year. I will pay more attention. I've had some things going on with the NBA, and
they also didn't have a college season,
right.
which made a difference. Yeah,
right. Didn't have the end of the season anyway. I've never really paid that much attention, but normally I start paying attention. We just had the pandemic and the election, whatever, and but I do have synergy. I have no excuses really. So I never heard of Aaron Nesmith before until I started reading about the mock drafts, and I noticed that he's a well-built. 6'6" wing, 6'10" wingspan kind of guy. That's, we talk about having plus wingspan. So, my son is, 6'2" without shoes, with his maybe 6'3" wingspan. He's not really plus anything, plus 1 maybe. That's how most human beings are. Derrick Rose, I think, is 6'2" with a 6'9" wingspan, and they're all plus whatever. Weissman is 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan. Those are freaks, right? So this guy's a freak. But he's probably the best shooter in the draft. So watching him, I thought Klay Thompson when I watched him, like just that dude he shot 50 something % this year on 8 threes a game as by far their best player. So you knew he was going to get the ball, and you couldn't. I promise you, every scouting report was don't let Nesmith see the rim from 3. And he took 8 of them and made 4 plus. So amazing shooter. I don't know that he needs anything else. He'll be fine defensively with that kind of wingspan. He checks all the boxes of amazing kid. They don't let dummies get into Vanderbilt. No one stupid is getting to college basketball. Let's be fair. It's fair to say Vanderbilt's at a higher level. And I love that about Vanderbilt. I love that about Notre Dame. They have a standard. I've actually coached players that played at Vanderbilt, and their guys actually have to go to class. It's an important thing. Huh?
Big part of college. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's right. I agree. And so I coached a great shooter from Vanderbilt named John Jenkins, one of the best shooters I've ever coached. And hearing him talk about school and hearing my guys at Arizona or whatever, big difference, right? Vanderbilt ain't shortchanging your academic career. So I like that about him. I just like that he's a brilliant shooter who doesn't need good shooting, right? He's a better shooter probably than Devin Vassell. He's not the overall player, I think. I don't think he creates off the dribble great. He's going to be a catch and shoot guy that should be fine defensively with his build. But who doesn't love great shooters who are great people? I'm a big fan of that.
So why wouldn't he be higher?
Because I think there's a limit to that ceiling. And I don't think teams are smart about this, but I do think that, well, let's go backwards. I love John Hollinger. For many reasons. I happen to think he's brilliantly funny, and he's a brilliant writer, and he's a worker. But we got into an argument years ago about Joe Harris. Mm-hmm. He went to Virginia, where John Hollinger famously went to college. And I was so surprised that he didn't love him just because I thought it might be biased a little bit. But if you're not going to be biased that he went to Virginia, be biased because he's an amazing shooter that's a better athlete than he looks. And he didn't agree with me necessarily. I don't think he thought he couldn't play in the NBA. anything like that. He was a second-round pick. John wasn't alone. No one else wanted him in the first round either. And I just thought that was ludicrous. Nesmith is higher rated. He's taller and all of that. But I feel like because he's not going to be anything more than the shooter, these other guys ranked ahead of him at the wing position, the guard position, can do more with the ball. And we are in a phase, Henry, where we want our players to be more versatile, right? We want our bigs to be like AD and Bam Adebayo and Nikola Jokic, right? This is not that guy. He's not going to be running side pick and roll. He's not going to run, we call it third side. First side, swing it to second side, back to the first side, which is the third side. He's not going to get it and then play side ball screen. He's just not, probably. I don't care. Duncan Robinson can't do that either. He was really fucking effective for Miami.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if he's on your team, just change your system a little bit, right? I value him very, very high, higher than where he is at 17 on Sam's board. I don't know how much higher, but higher, because I think he can be an unbelievable shooter. And who doesn't need that? Look what Bertans did. He's taller than this guy, but look what he did offensively for the Wizards, right? He was a brilliant offensive player for them, shooting as many threes as he did. This guy can have a similar kind of impact and be better on defense.
I feel like the 3-point shooter, to me, maybe the rim protector as well, is like, oh, I'm going to make a weird poker analogy, and I'm not much of a poker player, but like, so on the one hand, you're like, oh, just get the highest card you can, right? Like throw back your low cards and get the highest card you can. But if you have a pair of twos, like the 3-point shooter, this guy, Aaron Nesmith, who can, like, is the really? Third two, which makes your hand amazing. Cause I guarantee you have this hand that needs he's like Duncan Robinson gets to playing time and shots on every team in the NBA. And he's 0% to become a superstar because he doesn't create off the dribble. He's not a dynamic athlete, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? Every team needs players who aren't demanding the ball. Actually, this brings up a little bit. I mean, as the show was starting, of course, everyone's talking about the idea, and we should probably bring Gerard in now, Judy, because he's going to want on this for sure. But oh, James Harden will go to the Nets and play with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, to which I say, ha, ha, ha. Like, they're going to kill each other. There's no way they need 37 balls on that team. Anyway, but this is a guy who doesn't need the ball all right. Possession, right?
I think it's a great analogy. And just real quick, Gerard, before let's you can talk about whatever you want, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the Kyrie thing. When LeBron went to Miami, I said to Henry then, that day, but also when they were getting killed because their team didn't look so good that there's not enough balls. And I said, bullshit. I never used that word, actually, so I didn't say that. I said BS. I don't like that word. I like other cuss words, not that one. But I said, I'm sure I wrote this on Twitter and on ESPN. I completely disagree that those guys can play together. Mm-hmm. That's why LeBron went there. He knew Dwayne understood how to play off him. Dwayne's an amazing cutter, great in transition, and also can do things with the ball, which only helps LeBron too. I think Henry's exactly right. I think James Harden can do that. He ain't going to do it. Mm-hmm. Kyrie can do that. He ain't going to do it. Mm-hmm. We know KD's had enough of that anyway. I completely agree with Henry that these guys don't want to play that way. What do you think about that?
Well, I have so many thoughts. I will say just strictly from a content creator, yes, give us all the chaos in Brooklyn so we have lots of things to write about, right?
Good perspective.
That's
good perspective. You're thinking. I like how you think.
Right? I mean, that's just going to be fun for us. Which actually, if that actually does happen, Henry, I'll offline you about what we should do around that. I think I got some pretty good ideas.
You have to move to Brooklyn. Yeah.
But no, that's a disaster. That's someone actually mentioned, what if KD went to Sean Marks is like, how about you trade Kyrie and get James Harden in here? Like, what if that happened? That'd be hilarious. Like,
well, then just get Westbrook. Just be the 2010 Thunder. Like, just do it.
And it's funny that you mentioned the 2010 Thunder, right? Like, I will forever kill Sam Presti for making that James Harden trade. I don't care. However, he's still a very good GM. They have like 16 picks coming up in the first round over the next 6 years.
And they have some good young players.
Right?
And that's some good young players.
And good young players. I mean, that's better than having 16 lottery tickets because we get 16 lottery tickets, you're still not winning. 16 first round draft picks, you might hit. Right? You might get.
And they're gonna trade Steven Adams for a 17th.
Well, right. There you go. But I was thinking about this as we're talking about this draft, and I wonder, it's easy or easier when we're looking at things and you're a GM or you're a talent evaluator, and it's like, all right, we got this guy projects to be an MVP level dude. This can be a franchise level player, blah, blah, all that stuff. Maybe in a draft sometimes you just don't have that kind of top end talent. That just is what it is. But if your mindset is, can I find, to your point, Henry, an NBA starter? Can I find a rotation guy? Because those things are also valuable. Yes, you need all NBA dudes or else you're not winning. We get that. But you can't have a team of all NBA guys. That's just not feasible. You have to fill out the roster with other stuff. And I wonder if teams screw themselves up by saying, oh, this guy's a future all-star. And it's like, no, that's not what he is. He's just a starter. And if you use that as your mindset, maybe you're better off.
I think about the spork. You know what I'm talking about?
The spork?
Like, it's a spoon and a fork. And guess what? It's a piece of garbage. Like I want a fork. I want, you know what I mean? Like, or I want a spoon. Don't aspire to be something you're not. Like just be good at your thing. It's fine. You can be a fork. Good enough.
So on that topic of sporks, I'm kidding. So Gerard, when the internet first was invented and then we had things called blogs, right before I got to ESPN, I
Gerard's not that young.
I know.
He just looks young. I wrote that I thought JJ Redick, I don't remember exactly how I worded it, but I thought he should be in consideration for the first pick in the draft amongst the college players. There was no synergy for me. I had not seen the international players, nor you could go right out of high school. So I had not seen Dwight Howard. But my thought was, this guy is one of the greatest shooters of all time, tireless worker. I thought he was completely underrated defensively. Duke really teaches defense very well. And he is so effing competitive. This guy is going to be around a long time. I've never gone back to look to see how wrong I was, but I don't think I was wrong by much. And I don't think he's ever made the All-Star team. So, yeah, if you know you can get a definite All-Star that's a can't-miss guy, good luck finding those guys, by the way. But normally you can't make them just because you think that he has the prospects of it, right? Get the guy that you know can do all these things and help you win. We didn't mention Isaac Okoro from Auburn, but Isaac Okoro is like a Lou Dort, Marcus Smart. Why would he be lottery? Well, those guys find ways to win. Okoro and Smart guard you. Smart and Dort guard you. Okoro apparently does too. It's hard to tell in 1 year. He's a winner. I think he won every game his senior year of high school and won his first 15 games at Auburn. Like, that matters. Those metrics matter. I don't love him like I named these other guys, but and he only averaged 16 points per 40 minutes. I like that. It didn't matter. He won at Auburn, right? Tommy Tuberville used to coach at Auburn. Okay,
bad news. Bad news.
He was football, obviously. JJ Redick's going to help you win. Okoro's going to help you win. That's what we're supposed to be doing, guys. Win. The fans will come. Win.
Can I have a little aside on Kyrie? Like, I'm sure you could go through the Troop archives.
His favorite player, by the way, is Kyrie Irving. In case anyone couldn't know.
Yeah. I guess, like, they talk about LaMelo. You got to turn the franchise over to him and let him blossom. Bad idea. I don't feel that's generally true. Like, even Steph is better off in a system where he doesn't possess the ball the whole dang time. And a lot of the choices aren't his, right? And this is how you get the most out of everyone else on the court. Like, to me, Kyrie at this point of his career might be that guy. I actually think he is a genius, right? He just has a view of the game that's pretty singular. Like Kyrie's seeing the road from where he is to the rim and has a bunch of moves along that way. And like, it might involve other players and it might not. But he's very, very good at that, right? So to me, at this age, like, if you're Brooklyn, like, you've already made that bet. Like the Kyrie who's just kind of hangs back and lets other people dribble away. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see that guy. Or maybe there's a phase where he comes off the bench or whatever. Like, but I'm not counting on that. To me, like at this stage, I would like to see fully empowered Kyrie. I think it'd be fun to watch. It's amazing. Honestly, he's amazing. And I don't really understand the point of like to me, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are here because they didn't have sufficient oxygen at their previous stops, right? Like, they are here to get that clean air of like, we have lots of time with the ball. And like, if they don't have that, what do they have? Like, that's
James Harden here to take more of that oxygen, right? Like,
all the oxygen.
Because that's what he is, right? And again, I want to be clear about this. If James Harden says he wants to leave Houston, every team should inquire about him, right? Because he's very good at basketball, right? Okay, put that over there. But we know how James Harden at this stage of his career likes to play basketball. Give it to me and let me look 20, 30 seconds of the shot clock. He's doing all the work. The rest of you 4 dudes are just standing out there. Maybe you might get it, you double. That's not going to work in with this team, I don't think.
Well, that's why he's not playing for the Thunder anymore, is because everybody knew that he wasn't going to be okay sharing the ball to that degree, right? Yeah. Okay, so this has been fun. I really like this. Like, so Dave, one of the main skills that I have in life is to listen to David get excited about stuff and recognize he's excited about this. So to me, like, you know, I love that. Like, let's write it in stone. Let's come back and so we can dust it off in a few years. But James Weissman, Denny Avdia, Devin Vassell, Obi Toppin, Patrick Williams, Aaron Nesmith. How do you feel about that list, Dave? You feel good?
Yeah, well, like, I mean, to be fair, I'm not that I'm qualifying anything because they were just my favorite players. The big kid from USC,
Onyeka Okongwu. I like him a lot.
He's interesting. I like Precious Achiwu.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. There was one guy I wrote down too. There's some second round guys too I like as well that we'll talk about maybe on Wednesday. And so, yeah, if you've got plenty of guards or wings and you just don't have any athletic bigs, the kid from USC or Memphis, the Precious kid from Memphis, I would happily take them over Pat Williams or Aaron Nesmith. I don't know about the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Devin Vassell can really be special. But yeah, then you can combine need and prospect, right? Yeah. But I'm very fine with this list. I feel very, character matters so much, and these guys are high character guys, and they get it. How about you? Anyone else I'm missing, Gerard, that you like?
I know that's who I like a lot. I mean, just from like his answers, and he was cool, and you guys didn't check it out. We talked to Jermias Ramsey on Friday, Henry and I. He's just a cool kid, and I like this whole
delightful.
Yeah, what are you guys listening to? And he did not know who the Fugees were. And when Henry said Stevie Wonder, Stevie Wonder was a relic from the 1920s. I was like, oh God, this is a real problem.
I'm envious. I'm envious of that. Like, it's like finding out, like, I've never seen The West Wing, and my wife are going to start watching The West Wing when my daughter comes home from college. And my brother, who had also never seen it, said, Dave, there's like 7 seasons with 25 episodes. Like, you're in for a long run of pure joy of brilliant writing. This is like the Fugees and Stevie Wonder.
It's like
they have no idea. I listen to as Stevie Wonder dropped albums. I listened. Okay,
dive into it, my guy.
Yeah.
I will say real quick as we go, Henry, I think, and Coach, I think you guys we both agree on this. This is another reason why we should abolish the draft, right? Because I think if you don't have that pressure of, oh, that guy's a number 1 pick, then in your mindset he has to live up to number 1 potential, whatever that means. Whereas if it's just sign whoever you want to fit your team, you don't have to worry about, oh, this dude was picked number 1. He's not very good. You need starters and role players, and that's just how this game works.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah. Granny had a question about Killian Hayes. Thorpe, what do you think about him?
Yeah, I was going to mention some other guys on Wednesday. I don't love him. His dad grew up in the Tampa Bay area. Teron Hayes, he played at Penn State, and then he married a girl in France, but he's playing professionally there, and he never left. And that's why Killian's from there. But they come home every summer here. I think he reminds me of a Jalen Brunson. The fact they're both lefty is coincidental. He's just I think he's a solid 6'5" guard who's had some success internationally, plays at the Pro A level. He played in Germany last year, and a pretty good team in Ulm. I don't love him, though. I think he's okay. Like, he's going to be a solid player. No guarantee he makes it. That position, if you're not athletic at all, and I don't think he is, it's a challenge. But he really knows how to play the pick and roll game, like Jalen Brunson. I don't know if he's as tough as Brunson. Brunson's so tough. You have to have that if you're not a brilliant athlete or a great shooter. He's none of those things. So he is a scientist with the ball. He's got a chance. But I've read about teams like Phoenix looking at him. It makes some sense where you can put high-level scores around him and it'll make him better.
Okay. All right, well, it's a minute till everybody starts trading everybody in the NBA.
All kinds of trades happening here. Look out.
Buckle up, everybody. So we'll be back on Wednesday with a fuller look at the draft. Thank you, David. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you, Judy.
Be safe, everyone.
All right.